Hello and welcome back to today's video. Today we're going to be taking a detailed look at the super test changes to 4 tier 10 tanks that Wargaming have finally given us the details for today. It's been hinted we're going to be getting nerfs to the Minotauro and the Super Conqueror and buffs to the Foch B and Pz.Kpfw, but today we've got the details, so let's have a look at them. So, the Pz.Kpfw, this is one of the tanks which is going to be receiving a buff in an upcoming update. So, what have they changed? So, their whole goal with the changes for the Pz.Kpfw is to make the gun handling better and to make it a little bit more survivable. If any of you have played this tank or played against this tank, you will know that it has a weak spot. You can shoot around the gun on the mantlet and you'll pen. So, they're changing that. They're removing that weak spot. Similar to the VK72K, the Clamorous Reward tank, doesn't have that weak spot. They're making that kind of the same, which is going to be a good change in my opinion. So, what's the details of what they are changing? So, dispersion is going to be going down to 0.33 from 0.37. That's a good change. The gun handling is just going to feel a lot more snappy. You'll be able to kind of quickly re-aim snapshots a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit more reliable at range as well, which is, in my opinion, a good change. This thing's gun was probably its biggest limitation. It's also going to be losing 0.3 seconds aim time, so down from 0.26, from 2.6 to 2.3 seconds. Another good change. Once again, you're going to feel like you're able to snapshot a little bit more, which in my opinion is completely fine. Penetration of the gun. This thing did used to have relatively weak penetration values, so they're increasing its standard penetration to 276. Good change. Its gold pen to 325. Good change. That's not too high, but it's kind of like middle ground where it's going to be able to pen, for example, the cheeks of a E100 about like 65% of the time instead of like 35% of the time. So it's just kind of a comfort kind of change, but it's definitely not going to break this tank, and they're not touching the HE penetration on this tank, so don't worry about it having a ridiculous HE pen or something. And they're just giving it a little bit more engine power, so it's going to be able to go a little bit quicker forwards, which is going to be nice. So the Pz.Kpfw is going to have no weak spot anymore around its turret, or anymore around here. No more weak spot, that's gone. It's going to be more accurate. It's going to be a little bit more comfortable with its gun handling, especially with its penetration as well. And it's going to be able to get into position quicker. So, in my opinion, that's a good change. This tank was already not terrible, but the changes they're making are not going to completely destroy the balance of the game. So, that's a good change. So, let's look at the 50B. So, sorry, the AMX Foch B. So, what do they plan to do with this thing? Basically, they want to improve its gun handling and its comfort to play. So, we're going to be getting reduced aim time, decreased dispersion after firing, and some better hold reverse. So, let's have a look at the details. So, it's getting plus 4 kilometers an hour reverse speed from 13 to 17. That's kind of big. That means this thing's going to be able to kind of reverse rotate. So if it's being, I don't know, circle strafed by a medium tank or a light tank, it'll be able to reverse itself back to a wall quicker. That's a nice change. It's getting specific power to its tonnage is going to be going up by 4.2 to 22, which is going to be nice. That's just a comfort change. It's going to feel a little bit more maneuverable. It's going to be a little bit quicker over certain ground resistances, especially soft. Aim time down by 0.2 seconds to 2.1. This thing is going to feel quite nice. Obviously, it's got a clip, so you're going to feel like you're aimed a little bit more between each shot. That's good. Then they're fiddling with its dispersion. So after firing, it's going down. Nice change, just going to feel more comfortable. So as I said, in between the clip as you're firing, you're going to be a little bit more accurate. On the move, it's getting decreased as well. Not a massive change, but it's going down a little bit. So if you're having to traverse the hall, you're shooting something on the move, potentially. There you go. Going to be a little bit more accurate. And as you're moving the gun, it's not going to bloom out as much. They've changed that by quite a lot. So this thing is going to be kind of a bit scary, actually. In my opinion, the Foch B was already... Yes, it was underperforming, but it was a good tank in situations where you kind of were able to come around a corner and just dump a full clip into a tank. This thing is now going to be better at doing that. So This thing is going to be interesting to see how the changes play out. It could become very good because that gun handling increase, even though it's marginal, it's enough that between its intraclip, it's going to be pretty accurate. So it's going to feel kind of like a laser. It could be like that, but we're going to have to see. But this one has the chance to be a little bit scary. But let's have a look at the nerfs now. So we've covered the buffs. Let's have a look at the nerfs. So, the Super Conqueror. This is probably the one you're all waiting to hear about, and waiting to hear my opinion on, because it is pretty much the best tier 10 in the game right now. Arguably. You know, there are other tanks in there which do compete, but the Super Conk is good. So, they are essentially decreasing its firepower, but not much else. So, let's have a look at the details. So, they're reducing its hit points, taking 100 hit points off it. That's going to mean that it kind of can't trade as effectively. Obviously, it's good on a hull down. It's got decent turret armor. It's got a cupola that can only really be penned if you hit it in certain spots and if you fire heat. But now it's going to be able to trade a little bit worse. So it's going to be an interesting change. It's good. That's a good change. They're increasing its gun loading by pretty much a second, 0.9 of a second. That's going to impact this thing's DPM pretty significantly. It's losing 258 DPM down to 2.5. So this thing is going to have sub 3k DPM now. It's a very similar change to what they did on the Chieftain, if any of you remember those nerfs back in the summer. It's a very, very similar change. Apart from they haven't touched the speed of the Super Conqueror, they've just taken some hit points off it and reduced its DPM, which, in my opinion, is a pretty light nerf. Considering this thing is massively overperforming and it does have incredible capabilities, it's still going to be very good. It's just going to be able to trade a little bit less, so you're going to have to be a little bit more careful with your hit points. And it's going to have less DPM, so it can't just sit on a ridgeline and farm. So it's still going to be good. They're not, you know, reducing its speed. They're not decreasing its gun handling. It's just DPM and hit points, which is maybe a little bit of a light nerf, but they're not nerfing it into the ground, which is what I like to see. They're not going, okay, you're the best tank. Screw you, you're now going to go to be the worst tank. Like when they nerfed the AMX M454 from they buffed it to the best thing and then they nerfed it down to pretty much insignificance now. So, yeah. It's a nice nerf. It's a clever nerf. It's intelligent. It's not going to destroy the balance of the game. It's not going to become terrible. It's still going to be very good, but we'll see. The other tank that's changing, which is another one I know a lot of you will want to know, and the nerfing, is the Minotauro. This thing currently is just ridiculous. It has a cupola that just doesn't exist. And, yeah, it just kind of sits there and you kind of go, oh, well, there's a Minotauro in front of me. Well, I can't push this, or, well, cool. It's really not fun to play against currently. But they are changing its armor and also its maneuverability. So, let's have a look at the details. Its front hatch armor is being reduced by 70 millimeters. Good for me. That's a nice nerf to its armor. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It's just whether it's going to be a flat 70 change or whether it's going to be you know, situational, depending on whether you're firing heat and stuff. Okay. Maybe it's not the biggest change to its armor, but it's a change. At least they've realized. It's losing some hit points, 100 hit points. That means it's just going to be able to trade less. That's good. Its dispersion is going up during hull traverse. That's going to be nice. It means it's going to be a little bit less accurate if it's having to, you know, move its hull. Okay. Its dispersion on the move, however, is being buffed. So, you're traversing the hull, you lose some dispersion, you're on the move, you know, kind of is what it is. a big nerf is to this thing's heat shell velocity. It currently has ridiculous heat shell velocity, which it shouldn't have. It's heat. It's designed to be slow. They're reducing that down massively from 1200 to 950. So you're not going to be able to snipe with heat really anymore, especially at tanks that are on the move. It's going to be pretty slow. So you are going to have to bear that in mind, but that's a good change. I like. Its engine power is going up and its traverse speed is going up. So it's going to be a little bit quicker and it's going to be able to traverse quicker, which is, it's a nerf, definitely, but they are making sure that they are not nerfing it into the ground. They're making sure that they're nerfing the things which are especially broken on it, and then kind of slightly increasing the things that currently balance it or stop it from being ridiculously overpowered. So this thing, the Minotauro, is probably still going to be very good after the changes. Do bear that in mind. You know, its frontal hatch is not massive. You're still going to hit the thing. So that is what it is. If you are able to hit it, you are going to be able to kill it quicker because it's got less hit points. And it's going to be a little bit less accurate, but it's going to be there quicker in the cooldowns, and it's going to have better traverse speed and slightly better dispersion on the move. So, it's kind of a 50-50 change. It's not massive, but once again, they're making sure they're not nerfing it into the ground to complete insignificance, which I like. It's intelligent. It's still going to be a playable tank. But it's important to note they're also changing the Tier 9 and the Tier 8 of the Minotauro line. They're going to be making similar changes. They're going to be changing on the Conqueror, so the Tier 9. They're going to be giving it a weak spot on the hull's upper plate. So the upper hull is going to be weakened. Good change. But they're also going to increase its traverse speed and dispersion from hull traverse. So, once again, you take something away, it gives it something back. It's not going to nerf it into the ground. It's still going to be a good tank, but they're just kind of making it a little bit nicer to play against, I guess. But it's still going to be nice to play, if that makes sense. And same again for the Tier 8. They're going to be reducing its lower plate hull armor, which is good. So basically it's going to be a little bit less able to brawl. Currently the Tier 8 kind of can bounce, especially Tier 8, Tier 7 tanks in the lower plate. It's only really Tier 9 and high pen Tier 8s that it currently struggles to bounce. But now most things are going to be able to pen it. And they're also increasing its dispersion during hull traverse, so it's going to be a little bit less accurate once again. So, good nerfs, in my opinion, all round. You know, the Pz.Kpfw is not going to be, buffed into complete overpoweredness. It's not going to break the game balance. They are increasing the things that are currently a little bit, underperforming on it without changing the things that are currently good on it. So, good changes, in my opinion. The Foch B, that one could be a little bit scary, but it doesn't look like it's going to be... It's only going to be scary if it's clipping you out, if that makes sense. Not changed anything to that thing's armor, but the Foch B one is probably the one which holds the most potential to be a little bit broken, but we'll see. The Super Conqueror changes, in my opinion, are quite light. But once again, they're not nerfing it into irrelevancy. It's still going to be a good tank. So, if you want to pick it up, still pick it up. If you have it, don't sell it. It's still definitely going to be a good tank. It's just going to be able to trade less, and it's going to be a little bit less fun to kind of sit there and farm, less DPM. And the Minotauro is going to be a little bit more fun to play against because you can actually pen it. But it's still going to be fun to play because they've made sure they're taking some things away but giving it other things back. So, overall, well done, Wargaming. You're doing nerfs, you're doing buffs, and you're doing them more regularly than you have done in the past. But, I know this is asking a lot, I'd like to see a few more. Only doing 4, and if this is the only 4 we're going to get in this first half of the year, that's not great. There's tanks like the Concept 5, the new British Tier 10 medium-wheeled tank. That needs a buff. The Type 71, the new Japanese heavy tank line, is looking like it needs a buff. We've got old tanks like the Type 5 Heavy, the Batchat. What else springs to mind? The 140. Tanks like that, which are currently underperforming. So I'd like to see those tanks be, thought about and, included for some buffs in the future. And also, don't forget, not just buffing tanks, but also nerfing tanks. You know, there are tanks within the game that are currently, you know, still overperforming. So it would be nice to see Wargaming, you know, have a think and go, that's broken, let's change it. And hopefully one day they stop being scared to nerf premium tanks, but God knows. But that's my opinion on these changes. If you did like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And check out these two videos here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!